Hey there, welcome back to Science Flixtion. I'm Salim Sadarwala, and as always, I'm joined by my friend and co-host Carl. Carl Ames, actually, that's his full name. I should probably say that. How's it going, man?
I'm pretty good. How are you feeling after watching this movie?
I'm feeling great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. We'll get into that for sure. Another movie I wanted to ask you about. We're not gonna dive too deeply into it. I'm just curious if you watch. Have you seen Free Guy?
No, I have not. I heard good
It's a
things about it. It's on
it,
Disney Plus now, isn't it?
it is. It's on
Okay.
Disney Plus. It's a fun movie. It's funny. Not I don't know. It's funny. It's a fun movie. It has funny moments, and it's like a good like actiony movie, I guess, in itself. But when I saw the trailer for it originally, I was expecting something a bit different, but it's different than I thought it would be. But yeah, it's a good movie. I would highly recommend anyone who hasn't watched it yet to check it out. Like I said, it's on Disney Plus. A good Saturday night movie watch. You can watch it with the family too. Like if you have little kids that you want to have some popcorn with, sit down as a family, check it out. It's a fun movie. It's a good movie. So
Nice.
worth a watch for sure. But yeah, Batman. Man, I'm hyped about our conversation right now. I love the movie very, very much. We do have the final trailer. We'll play the final trailer just to kind of give the audience a little feel of the movie. I'm sure if you're listening in, you've seen the movie, but yeah, let's go ahead and play the final trailer really quick here.
If you are justice, please do not lie.
You really could be doing more for this city. Family has a history of philanthropy, but as far as I can tell, you're not doing anything.
Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were. I'm just here to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city. All these years, you lied to me, Alfred. We all have our scars, Bruce. You're still awake.
It's only gonna get worse for you. Riddler's latest, all about the Waynes. Maybe we're not so different. Who are you under there?
You're part of this, too. How am I part of this? Stay still! You'll see. I've been trying to reach you. It's about a king, and Riddler's the match. When that light hits the sky, it's not just a call, it's a warning. The answer's justice.
If this continues, it won't be long before you've nothing left.
Let's get into some trouble.
I don't care what happens to me.
Come on, vengeance.
I'm vengeance.
All right, so that was the trailer. Now before we give our thoughts on the movie and get a little bit into like breaking down the characters and stuff like that, I do want to recommend, like I always do, like recommending with the comic book movies and shows, just to mention what the movie, like Matt Reeves, what he used, like the comic books, he kind of used loosely to kind of inspire him towards the movie. And these three comic books are really must read. I would highly recommend it because they're really good. They're really good comics. The first one being the Batman Year One. He used that one. That's just about how obviously Batman, kind of self-explanatory when he gets first started. Now, technically, this movie is when year two. It's not his first year. He's already been Batman for a year when we get into when you first the movie starts. But Batman Year One, the Long Halloween is the other comic that this is loosely based on, and then or inspired by, if I should say, and then Ego, the final one. Now the last two are a little bit longer. The Long Halloween is like a 13 issue series, and Ego is like much longer. I can't remember exactly how long that is, but still very much worth a read. I would recommend checking them out. Some of the best comic book Batman comics that are out there. So now let's get into the time the movie itself. Just shout out to Skokes for joining us today. Yeah, I completely agree with him. This was my favorite Batman, and I'll explain as to why it was in a short while here. But Carl, I'll let you lead off. I'd love to hear your thoughts, just your general non-spoiler thoughts on the movie as you watched it.
I thought it was a really great movie in general. It's been a while since we had a Batman movie. Being what bet The Dark Knight Rises would be the last one, because I'm not counting Batman v Superman in that. But it felt good to watch. It was really good. The pacing was pretty decent overall. I think um, the characters, the acting was really good. One of the things, just like Skokes was saying, the music was really good. I think that was one thing that stood out to me while watching, was actually listening to the score for it. And going back, actually, because after I watched this movie, I actually went back a couple days ago to watch The Dark Knight, because for what it's worth, I would say prior to this, The Dark Knight was the best Batman movie. There's varying opinions on that. But I wanted to watch it again because it had been a little while. And after watching The Dark Knight, it was like actually reminded myself of how much or how many things about The Dark Knight that I didn't like. And I can't say the same about the Batman with Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves Batman. That there wasn't that many aspects of the movie that were, um, that I didn't agree with or I didn't like or anything like that. There was a lot of positive acting. Yeah, you really can't. The Dark Knight, like, you can't beat the Dark Knight's performance of with Heath Ledger, like with the Joker. Like, that movie sells it. That movie is sold by Heath Ledger. Um, but the Dark Knight itself, the rest of the movie felt like it had weird pacing, and I also reminded myself that there's some parts of it I kind of got lost. Like when I watched it, like a quick tangent. When I watched The Dark Knight for the first time, I actually never even wanted to see it because I'm not a big Batman fan. I'm not a huge DC guy. I didn't even watch Batman Begins before I watched The Dark Knight. I got invited to watch The Dark Knight by a coworker, so I went just because I was invited on the Friday night that it came out. And then on the Saturday, people from my church invited me to go out to see The Dark Knight. So I watched it again on that Saturday. And then on that Sunday, the same people from my church had asked me, "Hey, we're going to go back and watch The Dark Knight. Let's go see it again." And only because I wasn't doing anything, I went to go see it again on the Sunday. So I watched The Dark Knight Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when it came out. Not that I love the movie, it's just because they did. And this movie, I think, is a much better movie than that. Not that I feel like watching it three times or anything like that. But in the very least, I don't have nearly as many problems with the Dark Knight, or excuse me, the Batman, as I did with the Dark Knight and any other Batman movies in general. But yeah, the music was really great. I really enjoyed um, a lot of the characters in particular, the Penguin and Catwoman, and overall the visuals are really good. Um, not a whole lot of real action scenes. It was more of a detective sort of thing, figuring out the riddles, figuring out the world, and what they were building there, and what the Riddler was trying to reveal. Was really more the movie, as opposed to it being a big blockbuster action film with a bunch of fight scenes and choreography and things. Sure, there were fight scenes and stuff, but I think maybe it could have used a little bit more of that stuff. Um, Also, I didn't crack a smile whatsoever when watching this movie, which is not a bad thing. It's just more of a know that there aren't really any jokes or any type of humorous tones to it. If you're into that sort of thing, it's not gonna happen in this movie. But again, it's not a knock on the movie whatsoever. It's just it is what it is. I still liked it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the future. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later on.
Yeah. So overall, yeah, I completely agree with that. Thought it was again the best Batman movie uh, up to date. I'm not really being a prisoner of the moment. I really don't think when I look at this movie as far as combination of like acting, direction, cinematography, production, location, how it relates so similarly to the comic books. It's so important. Like one thing that you mentioned, and we'll get again into later, like you talked about how it was a lot of detective work. That's important. That's who Batman is, a detective. And the comics, when you read the comics, he's not always just fighting guys, and he's doing a lot of detective legwork throughout each comic book. So that's really cool. How love how they incorporated that. Obviously, another with location, I really love like when you compare it to Christopher Nolan's Batman. I loved, and here he didn't just have, because obviously they shot it in Chicago, parts of it at least, but he actually spruced it up and made it look more than just Chicago, right? He actually made it look like Gotham. I feel like in The Dark Knight, it was just Chicago.
It was just
Like
Chicago, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't Gotham, it was just Chicago, right? So I loved how Matt Reeves really if it was Matt Reeves' idea, I don't know, production designing, I don't know how he makes those decisions. I'm imagining Matt Reeves is involved in that because he is the director, and how he directs certain scenes, how he wants it to look. He's probably involved in that, I would imagine. But yeah, I thought that's important. Like it's important to show Gotham, to Gotham what Gotham is, and I thought they did. I love that they did that. Um, Getting into like the characters, I know as we get into the characters here, we will start talking about spoilers. Just to give everyone a heads up, because if you've not seen this movie, you're not going to want to listen to us, because we're going to give away things about the movie that that, like I said, will spoil what your viewing pleasure if you are going to go watch it. It is long. It's like a 3-hour movie, but I think like that's another thing I look at. Like I really wouldn't really cut anything from this movie. I thought everything they had, I think he did was needed, and it was. I thought it like if they had cut some stuff out, I feel like he would have um, probably left some of the storyline open and stuff, or just missing like parts that would have made the movie not as good, I think. So yeah, I think the length, while long, it was worth it for me, in my opinion. Like just curious, what did you think about the length?
Honestly, I didn't really notice how long it was. I knew it was like at least 2 hours, or close to it. I'm not sure if it was closer to
3.
3 hours or
It
not.
was it
Yeah,
was
I don't
just
really
short
know.
of Yeah, it was just short of 3 hours.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it, I guess. Yeah, I really didn't notice it too much. I saw it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was still sun out when I got
No,
out of it.
for sure, for sure. But I mean, no, it's definitely longer than your average movie. Like, I mean, like the longest Marvel movie, for example, runs I think maybe like 2.5 hours. I think that's what
In
Avengers,
game, probably.
Infinity, and Endgame and Infinity Wars ran for a little bit like that. But yeah, so in general, getting just my general thoughts on the movie. Like I said, absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. Now, like I said, I do want to kind of talk about some of the main characters, kind of break them down. We'll we'll start with Batman and slash Bruce Wayne, played by Robert Pattinson. Um, so I really thought he did a good job in this. I thought, early on when they announced Robert Pattinson as Batman, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know if I want him to be Batman. I don't know if this is the right choice." But like I thought, like I said, as an early Batman, being like the year two of when he's out there as the Dark Knight, I thought he did a good job not only as Batman but as Bruce Wayne too. And they, oh, is that a? Am I hearing something, or is that just my?
And maybe it might be my heater. I don't know if you could hear that or not.
Oh, all right, no worries. Just I thought I was like, I didn't know if I was having issues on my end. But yeah, no. So like, as a Bruce Wayne, like early on, Bruce Wayne, he's not as active in Gotham. Like he's kind of a recluse early on. So he portrayed that well, I thought. Like so he's still figuring things out on both sides, as he's trying to how he wants his public image to be portrayed, and also as Batman, how he wants to approach being Batman. So I thought that was good. And a little tidbit I did like so in the comics he was heavily inspired by heroes like the Shadow, the Phantom, Dick Tracy. So all these guys have like a noir feel to them, and especially like Dick Tracy, Batman's supposed to be, like I said, with them adding him being a detective, that's so important to the comic itself, and they showed that because of those characters, he's similar to those characters, and Batman being like that said that detective, and he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, uh, which I think they did a good job portraying, like I said. And it's funny, Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, he actually calls him that at one point in the movie, the world's greatest detective. So I thought that was neat as well. What are your thoughts so far as far as Batman, Bruce Wayne, and how Robert Pattinson portrayed him was concerned?
Again, this is still like he's pretty young, so Robert Pattinson, I think, was a really good fit for this. Again, like we're talking about year two ish for Batman, and just as Bruce Wayne, he did okay. It is before that billionaire playboy persona that he would eventually, or he could eventually adopt. We don't know if they're actually going to go that direction, but in general, in the comics and other media, Bruce Wayne is like especially how you saw him in the Christopher Nolan series. Bruce Wayne spends money wildly, parties and stuff like that. He hasn't gotten to that point yet where he needs to put on the mask of Bruce Wayne. He's still very much in the brooding I am Batman's sort of phase of his career, and I like that enough. Interesting enough, I do find it odd though, having gone back and watched The Dark Knight and watching this, and then just looking at all of the larger Batman depictions, they tend to keep going towards this earlier days of Batman and their depictions, which I feel is kind of a little tiresome. Like I kind of appreciate a little bit of Batfleck because he was older, although think they went a little too old with him. Not that Ben Affleck is too old, but they just went with like he's been around forever and now he's at the end of his career and now the Justice League is starting. I think that's like the mistake with the DCEU. But having an experienced Batman that's been around for a little while and has gone through some stuff and has encountered villains, I think that's a little bit kind of in the middle, just somewhere in the middle would have been something I would have preferred, but still, seeing this version is really good. Is totally fine. One thing that I really liked about the suit in general, which they kind of didn't really, as far as I remember, go over specifically, the bat symbol on his chest. He was able to remove it and use it several times as like a little cutting knife. So he could use it as a knife or as a weapon or something like that. It's super cool that I don't think they talked about before the movie came out. But one thing they did talk about is how the design of it was supposedly the gun that was used to kill his parents. and then he took that and put it on the suit. That's what they said before the movie, and like promos and just talking about the suit and its construction. But nowhere in the movie did they actually mention that. So if you're not someone that's like on the up and up, you probably may not know. You just think it's a cool design for a bat symbol or something like that. But I think they should have actually said something, because again, we don't need the whole origin story of Batman anymore, but at least him talking about it. And especially since there's no Lucius Fox in this movie. So whether or not Lucius was there and just didn't get involved in the movie, or it was just Alfred and Bruce building their bat suit, and then they decide to take the gun and make it a bat symbol, that's still a conversation that would have been worth having, at least mentioning in the movie, for the lore, and not necessarily needing to go into the whole uh, Joe Chill of it all, and the full origin or something like that.
A quick thought or response as far as like it being like them doing the earlier Batman. So like the Christopher Nolan's movies, yeah, the Batman Begins is supposed to be like the first year, but the Dark Knight isn't like early years. He's been the Batman for a little bit once the Dark Knight comes out, and then the final movie is Batman Rises is when he's like older Batman.
Right,
They
because
kind
he
of
hadn't
jump
been Batman
timeline.
for a while after the Dark
No,
Knight. He went, he disappeared for a
correct,
while.
correct. But these movies that they're going to do is specifically only supposed to be its early years. So the next one of what I've read, it's going to be like year 3. It's not going to jump. They're focusing solely on the early years for this one. They're not going to jump around. So that's something they haven't really done. They haven't they haven't focused solely on one side of the timeline. They've kind of always done like, okay, we did a big intro and then we're going to jump like 5-6 years or 10 years however long, and then after that we're going to jump when he's like 60.
Well,
This is
still in that vein, what I like, another like a point to be made in that, and why I say this is, in the Batman, Commissioner Gordon is, or he's not commissioner, he's
correct.
Lieutenant Gordon. He's
Correct.
still, before all that happens. That's the same as in The Dark Knight. He was not Lieutenant Gordon, Commissioner Gordon, excuse me, yet he was still lieutenant. And then during the movie, the commissioner died. He gets promoted to commissioner during The Dark Knight. So
Sure.
I don't remember if I don't think so. He gets promoted in the Batman.
No, he's still lieutenant.
He's still
still a
lieutenant, yeah, as
lieutenant.
far as I know. So that's kind of the thing, that it's still early, even in the Dark Knight, that he's still not even commissioner yet.
No, but but that's Nolan doing something different there. But to my knowledge, that's still supposed to be where he's Batman. He's been a Batman for a few years at that point in the Dark Knight. It's not like brand new. It's not like he's still like in year 2, or it's not. I don't think it's like right after Batman Begins. He's still been Batman for a while, so like the timeline skip accordingly. But yeah, I think I thought I thought, like I said, I think a couple other things that I really liked. I want to mention about the Batman himself. So like the phrase "I'm vengeance." I don't know if you watched the animated series, Batman the animated series, but that tagline "I'm vengeance" is from that. And it's constantly been used. Like he says that in the show. He says, "I'm vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." So I like that they add. There's a nice touch that they brought back. They use that in this movie. And then the other thing I really liked, I don't know about you, but I like that he wasn't overly techie yet. Just because again, he's just starting out. It's not a lot. The equipment, since he's just like, it's supposed to be in year 2 of being Batman, he's not using a lot of different like advanced technology as of yet. But the one thing I did like to show that he has tech is like the context lens recording. That was pretty dope to see. A nice touch, I thought, as far as Bat Tech is concerned. What did you think of his equipment and stuff that he used, like as far as even like the grappling gun? That was pretty neat.
One thing that I really, really enjoyed more than I expected, because, like it said, is early days, is when he was jumping off of the building. Like normally you would think, oh, Batman, he extends his cowl or his cape or whatever, and he just glides down or whatever. That this was not very graceful of a fall. It was not very smooth. He had some technology in there, but it was like either his first time using it, or it just
Yeah, it
wasn't working perfectly, or
looked
it
like it
just
was his first time trying it.
yeah, or either that, or it's just like it's just not as good as what he's going to develop. But this was like, this is the inspiration. He can go back to Alfred or go to Lucius Fox, if there is a Lucius Fox, and say, "Hey, um, I had to jump off the building. Wasn't all that great. Can we improve that just in case I need to do it next time?" And then start working out getting the cape to uh be more dynamic and be more smooth and graceful, so he can land and not have to worry about breaking his legs. Another thing that hated actually about the Dark Knight is um, the Batmobile. I hate the tank design. Hate it, hate it, hate it. So that was one thing that like. As soon as it came up when I rewatching, I was like, "Oh yeah, that thing. I hate that thing." Comparing it to the Batman and his basically a regular car with a really souped up engine, and I don't even think the windows were bulletproof, right? Because he was shooting out the windows. So that's just good to see that, hey, like we got some money, we're gonna get some cool stuff, we're gonna get the best that we can buy and work on it and do what we can, and then realize that, hey, after this chase sequence, I was on the highway. I was able to get after the penguin, but it would have been nice to have this and this and this, and then just start working on building up the next iteration of the Batmobile. I think that would have been really, or that's going to be really cool as we see more of these movies, as we continue to develop this character and develop his ability to solve crime and figure out what his weaknesses are, so he keeps covering himself.
Yeah, and another a quick note in regards to Lucius Fox. So I don't imagine it. So if they stick to this being early years Batman, I don't think Lucius Fox will appear, because Lucius Fox in the comics at least doesn't appear till like much later. And obviously they Batman, when he came out originally, like in the '60s, it was a different tone to the movies, and then and then into the '70s, they became a little darker. The movies, that is, but like Lucius Fox doesn't appear to like late '70s, I think. Oop, a lot of noise there. I don't know what's going on. um, but yeah, I think so. Lucius, as far as like I said, as far as Lucius Fox is concerned, I don't believe he'll be in these series of movies. So yeah, it'll be like I said, it'll be interesting what they do going forward with his tech, but I think it'll be as gradually. And like I said, I agree with that scene was cool, and like I do think that it was like probably his first time trying the flight thing. It was almost kind of looked like it was um just like a balloon.
Mhm.
Like something inflated in him, and it was like him zipping it up and just air flowing, getting in there, so he can kind of just glide down. And obviously it was just his first time trying it. The parachute kind of tangled up to something, and then he just kind of had a really bad crash landing. But yeah, that was fun in my opinion. So let's move on to the next character I want to talk about. Is Selena Kyle, Catwoman slash Catwoman, played by Zoe Kravitz. I'll let you go first. What were your thoughts on Selena, as far as Selena Kyle slash Zoe Kravitz in this movie? How did you like her playing that role?
I think she did really well. In general, I think she's in very least she's very appealing for many reasons. But as far as the actual acting and the actual role, it was good. I don't think that she was utilized enough, like early in the movie, like the whole undercover sort of thing that she did with Batman. But it's kind of like that was like the peak of her utilization in the movie. I would have liked to have seen her do a little bit more towards the end. At the same time, what we had was pretty solid. I liked that she had I'm pretty sure she had grown out her nails, either that or they were just like if you can see her nails, they weren't like metal or they weren't gloved or anything like that. So she either grew them out or she had some fake nails to attach. So she has like some clawing abilities and stuff like that. She can fight a little bit. She wasn't super all over the place bouncing off of walls or anything like that. You could see that she had quite a few cats. She doesn't, like cats being strays and stuff like that. So she has all of that, the Catwoman sort of thing going on, but just a little subdued. Since it is a grounded in reality, sort of, or just say just grounded version of Batman and this whole universe it is. So she's not going to be um, as playful, say like Michelle Pfeiffer's or any type of animated series or comic book versions of Selena, but still, a solid character, a good first attempt. I would like to see more. Hopefully, we will see more. I like the teaser of heading to Bloodhaven, possibly, maybe she comes back, things like that. Just even that world building there, just does that mean we'll see Dick Grayson or we'll see uh, Damian Wayne or some sort? Obviously, I don't think Damian because probably a little too young. Maybe Jason Todd, or something like that. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but in the very least, Catwoman was pretty good.
Yeah, so it probably won't be Jason Todd. If they do, I mean, it'll be maybe Dick Grayson. But again, it's his early years, so Dick Grayson doesn't appear till later. So I who knows? Maybe they'll just like who knows if they'll include
Yeah,
those
that's
characters.
that's the only
That
thing about that is just like I don't think they're going to go so specifically following the comics that this Batman will have a young Robin that will be Dick Grayson, that he could have an older Robin. Maybe he could have just Nightwing and then not be, Dick Grayson being Robin first, sort of thing. Like because
well,
there's
Nightwing is
there's
Dick
a time,
Grayson.
I know that's what I'm saying. Dick Grayson being Robin first, like they don't necessarily have to do that progression in the comics because they don't have time. They're doing 3 movies. They're not going to do 10 versions of Robin just because there's been so many Robins, and you just
Sure,
have to be, they don't have to follow the
sure,
script of the comics. Is what I'm saying. They
sure.
could go Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and then do Jason Todd or the other one, I don't remember his name. It could be
Tim Drake.
Robin, because I think Damien would be just too young because he's just starting, so he would have to have a kid with Talia and to have Damien. So that would be a skip. But it could be Jason Todd for Robin if they do Robin. They may not. They might just do Nightwing. We've never seen Nightwing in a live action movie, so I think that's a possibility. But please go on.
No, yeah, I'm just saying I don't. It'll be interesting. Like I mean, it could have just been an Easter egg just to drop in, just to not to the comics.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, if there seem to be sticking closely to a lot of the comic books as far comic book like lore and storyline. So like for example, so my thoughts on Zoe Kravitz, I really loved her. I think she was really good, and yeah, I agree with you, man. She's she a lot of great qualities with Zoe Kravitz. I was definitely, it's easy to really feel her if you know what I mean. So, just saying in that regards, but I agree with you there. And like I said, her acting in here, I think she did a good job portraying the character. And like I said, like in the movie, the Catwoman's modern backstory and the comics is that she was like an orphan as a little girl. Um, in order to survive like Gotham City, she kind of learns to like steal, quickly rising through like the ranks of the criminal elements like that. Like she essentially is a cat burglar and she learns how to like basically the way she survives is learning how to uh steal and so forth. So later in her life she does, and just like in this movie they show later in life she does find out that she is um the heiress, like her father is our Carmine Falcone. So that's similar again in the movie and the comics. They kind of do the same thing. So, um, but yeah, I really liked her, and I think, like I said, they're doing a good job of kind of sticking to the comics. And then I also asked, like, do you guys think it's important for movies to be faithful to the original source? Um, like, I don't really necessarily care if the actual storyline itself is, excuse me, if the storyline itself is accurate to the original source. Sorry about that. But I do appreciate that they've done a lot of like similar as far as like um what the character is to like presenting the characters as similar to the comics. That I think is appreciative, and I think like for example when we talked about Spider-Man, like I think you and I both had a kind of an issue of them with MCU making Spider-Man such a uh, not portraying him as like Peter Parker's down on his luck and whenever he takes a win he takes two losses type of character. Like things were just going way too good for Peter. That's not what Spider-Man storyline is or who he is as a character. Now as far as the storyline and stuff, that's not relevant overall to me. Like obviously they're going to do different storylines because they can't just copy directly from the comic book. Otherwise there wouldn't be a lot of suspense because obviously the people that read the comic book, it'll be suspense for that. It wouldn't be a suspense for them. Um, but like I'm sorry, let me reverse that. For people who haven't read the comics, of course, it'll probably be suspense to them. But like you don't want to give away like your entire script, so you're gonna have a different storyline. You're gonna do your own artistic view on certain aspects of the character, but like the core of the character, I do appreciate that they left similar in this movie itself.
Yeah, as long as the spirit of the character, the story, the universe, it remains intact. The actual details of what happens in the movie or the TV show don't need to be one from one or even directly close or even directly inspired by the actual source material. Because, like, say, like the Loki series is not a direct adaptation of any storyline from the comics. The only reason why the Disney Plus series exists is that people love Chris not- Tom Hiddleston, excuse me, as Loki, and they don't want him to die. So they
All right.
want to keep pumping out more content with Tom Hiddleston as Loki. And that's the only reason why we have that series. It's not okay. Well, we got the story, and let's try to adapt it for no. This is just they take some elements from comics and adapt it, and it's okay. Let's just throw Loki in here because we want more Loki content for all the Loki lovers. And in general, if something is exactly the way the source material is, then the people that have enjoyed the original source material could watch it in the new media and say, hey, that's the exact same thing I just read. And that's the end of the conversation. And that is it. There's nothing else to discuss. Oh, this is different. Oh, this is different. Now there's a discussion. And the people that haven't watched or read the original source material can go to the veterans or whatever and say, hey, was the original like that? And they say no, and we have this podcast and we can sit there and talk about and point out all of the differences and talk about um, why which one's better or which one's worse or if they're comparable and things like that. But if it's all the same, then it's just like, well, pick your preference. Do you prefer reading or do you prefer watching? Because it's all the same thing. It doesn't matter. It's not interesting that way.
No, definitely. Now this character we're going to talk about next, the Riddler, played by Paul Dano. He is before we get into the different the characters and itself, like who he was, how he was played and portrayed. Um, he was kind of a difference, a little difference than the entirety of the comics. Like he was like a combination of different characters, which, like I said, I want to explain later, and uh, as I we talk about this character. But I thought he like as far as the kid, how he acted, Paul Dano in this. I think he did such an amazing job in this role. Like he made the Riddler like an absolutely like a sinister portrayal of the character. It gave the like you chills in certain scenes the way he was essentially showing like the different scenes that he was doing. Gave you kind of chills like and it might sound crazy, like it's almost like an Oscar worthy performance. I do think like he kind of gave a Heath Ledger level performance as far as this character and how he owned it and the acting job that he did do. And another thing I really loved about the Riddler is again going back into the comics for as far as Batman is concerned. I love how that they related and acknowledged that Batman Batman is a reason why some of these villains, you know, do what they do. Like he kind of is a cause for some of the things. Like while Bruce Wayne becomes Batman to to improve his city, the corruption and all that in the city, his presence is what potentially sometimes creates these villains, and that's something that they do acknowledge in the comics. And I like that they showed that like again as in this movie essentially Paul Dano is he's a vigilante as well, but he takes it a step further than Batman. And he's kind of following Batman's footsteps. They show that in here, so that's really cool. What were your thoughts on Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler?
I liked them, and it's definitely a far cry from the Jim Carrey version of the Riddler, which I do like, unironically. I do like
I
Batman's
barely
Riddler.
remember it. I haven't seen that in such a long time, so I barely remember it.
Yeah, I was thinking about today. Like, I really haven't seen any of those old Batman movies since we stopped having VHS, because that's when we owned
Right.
VCRs and had all of those movies. And since we converted to DVD in 2000 something, we don't have those movies anymore and haven't seen any of them since. But either, despite that, like they're very different portrayals of the Riddler. Like Jim Carrey's Riddler is very much silly. I mean, it's Jim Carrey, and I can't say comic book accurate because I can't say I've ever read a comic book with the Riddler. I know what he's like in the animated series. I see what he looks like on comic book covers. I know he's silly and goofy and very bright and green and has that little cane with the question mark on it or whatever and all that stuff. This isn't that. Obviously, I think we can tell that from the trailer. In the very, very least. His performance, I think, was good. I really liked him, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I was in love with his performance or anything like that. I kind of liked him more when he was out, didn't have his mask on. You can actually see his face and actually, basically towards the end of the movie, when I'm like, okay, now we have the Riddler, just like a regular looking guy. Because with all the mask and stuff, he seems like he's really tough. You don't want to mess with this guy or he'll kill you. But he actually seems crazier when he doesn't have the mask on. He's just sitting at the cafe or whatever, and when he's in prison and stuff, he seems crazier then. And I think that and like he has like some mental problems, or well, at least I would say he would. Um, just based off the performance, not talking about the actor or anything like that, but just like you can see he doesn't have it all there. Like you don't do all of these things. Uh and then, not going to talk about the spoiler yet, but just that conversation he has at the end, like you feel like, okay, he's just not uh he's definitely not just some sane thinking guy or just someone that made a mistake or anything like that. No, he's definitely out there and weird. Um and that's kind of his whole thing, is that he was like what he was ignored, like no one saw him as he was living his life. And he basically was around when like he saw all of these things. Like he was a forensic accountant, he saw the transactions, but he saw other things as well, but no one really noticed him there. That was kind of his own thing, that he just was like a loner type of person. So I liked all of that aspect of him.
Right. Yeah. They really made the character basically as scary as possible. I think that was like the whole point with the mask being hiding who he is and making him like seems a lot like tougher, like you said, making him seem tougher and scarier. Um, a couple of interesting things like with the character itself, like I said, I wanted to mention because he's like a combination of characters. Um, for the Batman, he was kind of inspired by the Zodiac Killer because if you remember the Zodiac Killer, he would taunt like the police with like different cryptic messages, and he does that in this too. Like he'd use like the cryptic little different the deciphering that they had to do early on in the movie. Like when he's Robert Pattinson in the Batcave, he has that decipher, and Alfred is working on trying to translate what the code might be. That's like a nod to like the Zodiac Killer, and that's what I believe Matt Reeves wanted to use the Zodiac Killer as kind of like a as one of like the portrayals of who the Riddler will be. The other one is actually from Earth One, Batman Earth One series of graphic novels, where the Riddler is more of like a bloodier version, where he's like a serial killer. So they also use that version of the Riddler too in this movie. And the other one I was thinking I feel like that they did utilize. It's a different character altogether, not the Riddler, but it's a character called Hush. Um, so when they kind of are showing like the things that Thomas Wayne did, like in this movie, again, this is a spoiler, but in the movie they talk about like a journalist named like Edward Elliot who was kind of set to expose something that the Wayne within the Wayne family, um, like and then in the movie they talk about how Carmine Falcone ends up killing this Edward Elliot. The character kind of shares a surname with Tommy Elliot, and Tommy Elliot in the comics is better known as a character named Hush. So I think he kind of shares similarities with this version of the Riddler that the Batman and the Batman that they use. So like I said, there's a kind of a combination of different things, but like overall, like man, I just thought it was just such a fantastic um job that he did. And like especially like a lot of the lines, like a lot of the riddles that he's saying, it just like kind of like it gave you chills at some point at certain points. And um it would just I just love the way he kind of did he approached the role. I just loved every little bits of it. The other villain that they showed in here was obviously Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell. Carl, I'll let you again start off here. What were your thoughts on his portrayal as Colin Farrell? How he approached the Penguin?
Actually, real quick before we go into that, did you catch the Hush little Easter egg they had in the movie when they were talking about Thomas Wayne, and they had like the video, and they had like they put Hush on the screen. Did you catch that?
Yeah, that's why I thought that this was probably because, like I said, the Edward Elliot,
Hmm.
the connection there with the character is Kozlov. I don't know if I may have missed that Hush part because I did. There was a couple of times in the movie I had to step out just to use the
Yeah, so they were
restroom.
doing like the smear part, like just like smearing Thomas Wayne because he was running for mayor, and they were talking, and I think it was Riddler talking about Thomas Wayne and how corrupt he was, or how bad he was, and then it was saying that he paid off somebody. I don't know. I can't remember if it was him paying off Falcone or paying off yeah, it was him paying off because it was the whole Arkham thing with Martha, and he was trying to keep the reporter from like outing, like, hey, she's part of this, she's Arkham and all this stuff, she's crazy, whatever. um
Which
and
was Edward Elliot. Yeah, that
Edward Elliot,
person
and
he
then
was trying to pay off.
they actually put the word hush on the screen because he was like paying people off to be quiet, and they just put hush
Oh,
on the
right, right,
screen
right, right.
there. So that's like a little Easter egg for that character, as well as what just in the same vein of an Easter egg. The As we talked about, the Long Halloween is inspiring this most of this movie is inspired by that comic book, which was written by Jeff Loeb, as you can see there.
Right.
Um, Jeff Loeb and Matt Reeves. I think Matt Reeves is like studying under. It's something they have like a relationship. Like I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think he was like studying under Jeff Loeb a long time ago, and he was able, so he's referencing Jeff Loeb. So it's like a big shout out and praising of Jeff Loeb through this movie, inspiring by this book, which Jeff Loeb also wrote the Hush storyline for Batman. So there's a very good possibility that we could, I wouldn't say very good, but it could just be an Easter egg. It just could be just like him saying, here's a shout out to my mentor or whatever. I don't know if they're going to go in the Hush direction. I think it would be
No, that's
really
what I'm
nice though.
saying. I
Yeah.
think the Riddler was portraying Hush, the part like this character
Right,
was a
right,
mashup of this character.
right,
That's why they had that.
right. Yeah, I hear you. So I'm saying they could go in that direction, actually having Hush as a character too.
That'd be interesting. I actually think that there might be heading towards. Well, maybe they'll bring in Hush. You never know. But I think actually going towards like the Court of Owls.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because if you go throughout the movie, there's a lot of hints drop. Like the first time when he goes into the crime, the scene where the mayor is, the crime scene essentially. The riddle that he's handed, there's an owl there, and then throughout you see like different owl eyes, and I think that's like the Riddler's whole goal is to expose the lies of Gotham, and one of the big things in Gotham is um, the Court of Owls, with the Court of Owls being like the elites of Gotham, kind of controlling everything that's happening within the city. So I think that might be where they're going towards. That's my theory, and I've seen online a lot of people thinking that as well. So that'll be interesting to see what they do for sure in that regards. But yeah, so yeah, going on to like I said, Oswald Cobblepot.
Yeah, so he's
Uh,
again very very different than was Danny DeVito, right? That was Penguin in
right.
Batman Returns, and just any other version of it of the character. I still like even this picture. I cannot see Colin Farrell in there. Like
No.
that is not Colin Farrell,
Yeah.
and you like I just can't conceive that this is Colin Farrell in there. They did such a great job with his makeup and all of his whatever they put on him to transform him into a completely different looking person. Even his eyebrows look different. Like guess they cut them differently. But like I'm totally down for this version of Penguin. I want to see more. I want to see what they do with this character. I want to see because like as far as they're supposed to be, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. There's supposed to be an Arkham series on HBO where they're going to explore some other characters within Arkham, and then I've also heard that there's going to be a Penguin series that's going to basically after what happened with Falcone, there's kind of a vacuum in the crime world in Gotham, and supposedly. Uh, the Penguin's going to pick that up, and there might be a series exploring that. So that way, we don't have to spend a whole movie on that stuff. Again, rumors, not necessarily confirmed, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Uh, Either way, I really dug it. I really liked him a lot. I thought he fit a really good spot in there. I think he didn't need to be so comic book like. He didn't need to be so top hat and and all that. I think he also had he still was walking with like a limp or something like that, so he does have like a wobble sort of thing, like the Penguin does. But he really wowed me, just as a character and his performance. Again, he it just doesn't sound like Colin Farrell, doesn't look like Colin Farrell. I'm all about it, and I want to see more of this Penguin.
Yeah, I agree. Like Colin Farrell was like he gave it a more of like a mafia style version of the character. I thought that was a nice touch, and I think especially recent character is uh more of a since like the character has more traditional organized crime figure, as far as like in recent versions being especially in the comics. I think it was a nice change up. It was really cool. Like another thing, I mean, you mentioned the limp, but like in the comics, like and other versions of like we've seen in maybe in like the animated series or animated movies, like he has like that umbrella, and that umbrella like has like shoots. It's like a gun.
Hmm.
He doesn't have anything like that in here. Um, but yeah, as far as yeah, Colin Farrell, like you couldn't tell at all. You know, like the way he sounded, like the way obviously the way he looks. I wonder like how it was for him being in that, because I imagine that's a lot of like prosthetics and makeup and like whatever he has on his face. Like I wonder like how like heated he was wearing all that stuff during scenes. Like I wonder how like I don't know what the right word is out like uh how much he hated like certain parts of it. Like I wonder if he was like sweating bullets underneath.
Hmm.
Like you have to wonder like how uncomfortable he could have been in certain parts, because it's kind of crazy just looking. It's like I went with a friend, a couple of friends I went with, and one of my friends like he's like like who is who played the Penguin? It's like, dude, that's Colin Farrell. He's like, no way. He's like he had no idea because he didn't really look into it beforehand. But
If
it's
I never
like
looked into it, I wouldn't have known.
exactly, you would no one would have known if you didn't look into it, and it just kind of just shows you, um, yeah, the different, the very different not only angle they took with it, but like the look and everything. It just very interesting, and I guess obviously they with Carmine Falcone being gone will be interesting. I guess he'll maybe take over as like the underworld like boss, mob leader or whatever. It'll be interesting. That's what they made it almost seem like. Um, Maybe hinting towards it in the end when he's kind of looking over the city out of his view. We'll see what they do with that. Because I'm glad, I'm happy they didn't like kill off the characters, because that's what they do sometimes. They like kill off characters, villains and stuff like that. I'm glad that he's still going to be around. Um, and what they might do later on with the character itself and other versions if they do like you mentioned, like a spin-off or something or another. But yeah, it will be interesting the way they go. But yeah, I really love everything about how Colin Farrell portrayed the Penguin in here. So yeah, the next character we'll talk about, we've mentioned him already a little bit, as Jim Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright. Um, so I think Jim Gordon in this instance they were trying to do something a little different, considering there have been so many versions that are already adapted in so many like different times. Like for example, the Chris Nolan Jim Gordon, played by Gary Oldman, was
Hmm.
more in line with the comics. But I like the change that they did here. I thought Wright took the challenge to well, and seemed to like portray the character in more in a haunted way than past actors. Uh, and it kind of getting across like a very incorruptible quality. Like he was like one of the only cops that you can really trust. Like everyone else, you know, is shady except for him. And like the relationship that they showed with him and Batman, like while he's still not sure what Batman's, you know, motive is, you know, he still kind of has this trust in him, because he also doesn't know if he can trust his coworkers, right? It's
Hmm.
like he doesn't know if he can trust like the people that he works with. So he puts a lot more faith into Batman, and you kind of see that agitate like a lot of the cops, that he's putting so much faith into Batman, and why he's putting that much faith into Batman. That's interesting. Um, so yeah, like I said, at this point, again, we talked about who he like, what he is like. So he's just a lieutenant, and he's not the commissioner yet. So yeah, like I said, I thought he did a good job. And in general, I know we were kind of we're saying kind of the same thing with all the actors and characters, but I just don't think anyone did like a bad. Like I thought everyone did a really good job in their role. What are your thoughts on Jim Gordon?
Yeah, it's like I said, like with the Dark Knight, there were things about it that even after having not watched it a while and then watching it recently, I reminded myself how many things I actually didn't like about that movie. Whereas the Batman, there's not much for me to complain about. There's sure it's not. I don't think it's a perfect movie, and I'm certainly not in love with it. But I do like it, and I like everyone's performance. With Jeffrey Wright here, though, I think he was just kind of okay, though. Like, admittedly, I do like Gary Oldman's Commissioner Lieutenant Gordon significantly more. Just again, just watching The Dark Knight again, I was like, oh yeah, this Gordon's actually really great. I really like Gary Oldman's Gordon. Jeffrey Wright was cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not knocking his performance or anything like that, and I look forward to seeing more of him in the future. And maybe we get to see him become a commissioner at some point. Maybe we get to see more family. Maybe see Barbara, something like that. Uh, I'm fine with all of it, but I wasn't in love with this version of Gordon thus far. It's fine. Like he's just fine to me. Him helping out, and I really one thing that I actually really liked is especially when they were talking with Penguin and they were trying to figure out the riddle. Like they were wrong. Like actually I meant to say this earlier. I liked that in the very least, there was a part of the movie where they were struggling to figure out what was going on with the Riddler, what the riddle was, the rat with wings, and on all of that part, because all of the riddles before that, Batman, like as soon as he heard them, he had the answer to the riddle like almost right away. But that was one that he thought he had the answer, but it wasn't quite right. But then there was one that, oh, it must be this, or it must be that, or it must be me, or something like that. But he didn't get it until later on, and just them struggling together to figure out some of the riddles was appreciated, because again, he's a detective, but I don't think he should know like the answer to everything all the time. And seeing that struggle and them working together through it was really good.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned with the penguin letting them know like the correct way to pronounce in
Hmm.
Spanish. It was pretty funny. That part was funny. That part
Yeah.
made me laugh. Not a lot of jokes in that throughout the movie, or none. No, like not many jokes throughout the movie, and maybe some hinted uh like very subtly, but that one was clearly supposed to be like a comedic, not a comedic, but like a kind of a lighthearted moment in a sense, and make you kind of laugh and chuckle. But yeah, it's definitely like every riddle, he's not supposed to know exactly on right away, and he is supposed to struggle with it. And then they kind of do show like, yeah, he missed the big moment, like he completely, like in the end when um the Riddler or Paul Dano, when they're in that scene, he's like, "Oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were." But then he eventually goes in and he does figure out what it was. But that's because he realized, because Paul Dano essentially tells him, "Dude, you didn't figure out what my end goal here was." So that's why then he goes back to that one scene in Paul Dano's apartment, or whatever it is, his hideout or apartment that he lives in, and figures out the last thing that he wants to do. But yeah, that's all the characters as far as I wanted to talk about it. Did you want to bring up any other particular character? Because I do want to mention one. Well, technically, he was a character in the movie, but he was like a very small scene later. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But I don't know if you wanted to talk about any of the other main characters overall that you liked, that were in the movie.
I guess not in particular. I mean, Falcone, we hadn't really talked about him, but I don't have a whole lot to say. He did good. The actor, I can't remember who played him, but The character was cool, but I wasn't. Again, I don't have a whole lot to say about Falcone. It's just more of me realizing that he was actually in the Dark Knight too. I didn't realize he was. Um, but yeah, that's about it. I really don't have anything.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like obviously he's probably not going to be in the Dark Knight or in the future movies, I would imagine, unless somehow he survives. But we'll
Or
see.
flashbacks. It could
Or
be flashback.
flashback, could be flashbacks. But one character I do want to talk about is a pretty big character in Batman. So it was announced online. There was a lot of rumors that Barry Keegan, I
Kyogen.
think that's not Keoghan, is going to be the Joker, and that again he was in the Eternals, who he played Druig in the Eternals. But yeah, so there, like I said, a lot of rumors that it came out as revealed at the very end, like it showed him as the Joker in this universe. He doesn't actually like refer to himself as the Joker during like that brief scene in the Arkham Asylum when he kind of reaches out to the Riddler. They have like their cells are like right next to each other. Um, but I think, in my opinion, it's pretty clearly him because you kind of see like a little bit light when there's a little bit light into the his cell. You kind of see like his skin, like the chemicals that turn his skin white. His hair is clearly green. His mouth looks disfigured, like with that like sinister look smile that he has. So you kind of get like what he vaguely looks like, and he kind of looks like, I don't know if you've read the Killing Joke,
No.
but he kind of looks like exactly uh, like that Joker from that Killing Joke. Like that's like the Joker, like in the comic books. That's what he looks like when or darker side. So and then oh yeah, the other thing that he actually says, you know, to the Riddler, like one day you're on top and the next day you're a clown. So that's kind of hinting towards, yeah, that's I'm the Joker. What did you think of that scene? Like, did you really like? Did it kind of like, oh, this is cool? Like, did you have any other thoughts on it other than just like, oh, okay, this is interesting?
Yeah, pretty much that. No, in general, no. I mean, we don't have a whole lot to go off of other than the Joker is in this universe. One thing though that is worth noting that I found out that there are deleted scenes already.
Oh,
Obviously,
okay,
they've deleted, but there Matthew Reeves was planning on having Batman show up in Arkham in that scene and walking past Joker, and they have like a little exchange just to show that they've involved like they've been interacting with each other before this movie. Like there wouldn't be like a first introduction of them two interacting. He, again, like you said, he wasn't the Joker yet. He's not at that point where he calls himself the Joker, but the intention of that scene would have been Batman and whoever this guy is, the new Joker, had already had a history, and he's the reason why he's in Arkham is most likely um, because of Batman. But and maybe that could have been like the Red Hood sort of thing that he had before he was Joker.
right,
But in the very least, that again, that's a deleted scene that didn't go with that. And that's fine either way. It still would have been cool, and maybe we do get to see it one day. Hopefully, do they release it? Maybe it's a DVD extra or something like that. Um, Other than that, gotta wait. We gotta be patient. We'll have another Batman movie in 3 to 4 years. I think that's like the timetable. So
oh, that's what they said.
yeah, 3 to 4 years, something like that. They're not
Oh,
working on it
interesting.
right away. And then like we have these other possible, not necessarily fully confirmed um spin-off shows and things happening with the Batman series. Which you don't mind if we just go ahead and go into that, or you have anything else you want to add?
One last thing in regards to the Joker, I do wonder though, like if he's in there in Arkham, like if that happened like right after the chemical, like when he falls into the chemical as like the Red Hood, um in the comics, like he's supposed to like that's when he goes into that chemical thing to do like he's supposed to be robbing or whatever he's supposed to be doing in there, and he basically I think that's when like he's in Arkham Asylum because of that, like because he fell into that and he's clearly not well mentally, so they put him in Arkham Asylum, and he that's what he kind of that line that he says you're on top, and because that character was doing okay, and then all of a sudden life hits him hard, and then he falls into that chemical batch, and then he's a clown now, essentially. So I think I'm wondering that's what essentially it is, like because if Batman's only been the Batman for 1 year, and this is year 2 technically, you wonder how much running he's had with like various different villains. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. I was just wondering, thinking out like that might be what it's about. But yeah, let's get into like the prequel shows and spinoffs. And I'll let you lead off with that.
Yeah. Well, on that, just real quick, because I was thinking, and I know you don't play video games, Salim, but there is a Telltale game. They're the makers of the game. The company is called Telltale. They have 2 Batman games, and these Batman games are not like beat 'em up, difficult, tons of enemies, stuff like that. They're actually story based games where you can basically all you do is make decisions, and for the most part there's some little bit of movement, but like the characters, you're just enjoying a story, but you make decisions, and every decision that you make affects the story and what direction it can go in one, once you go in this direction, you can go this way or you can go this way. But once you're over here, now you can go this way or this way. And then you get this and this. And all of a sudden, you had your first 2 decisions. Now you can end up having like 10 or 15 different type of story outcomes based off of making several different decisions. In the second game, they have the Joker in it, and he's already in Arkham, like, and he comes out of Arkham. And it's a really, really good. The first game is good, but it doesn't have a whole lot of like, it's kind of like more original characters, if I remember correctly, but it does have like Harvey Dent, and it has Sali and Kyle, Catwoman in it and stuff. The second game has Joker, Harley Quinn, Bane, and Selene Kyle, Amanda Waller, Gordon, and it's a really, really, really good game that I would recommend. Even again, I know you don't have all the stuff, but if at some point you decide to get into gaming, the Batman Telltale games I would highly recommend to you. Again, they're very story based, and the difficulty is not there. It's just more you make decisions and you enjoy the outcome of those decisions and what stories you can do. You can romance Harley Quinn. You can romance Catwoman. You can romance none of them. You can bromance the Joker. You can actually become best friends with him if you wanted to. So it's really cool. Anyway,
But yeah,
so yeah,
speaking of the games, like I know I played like Arkham Asylum and stuff like that. I mean, but those are more like um actual like you have physically fight and things like that.
mhm.
And those games are pretty cool. Like those type of games are like the only reason I would want to like go ahead and buy like an Xbox or a PlayStation and want to play those, and especially just going online and watching on YouTube like the play, them playing out. It's just cool. Like those games are really awesome, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're good, and Spider-Man's right there too. So get a PlayStation because it's only on that. So play
Right. That's,
Spider-Man, and then Batman, and then go to Telltale Games and play those. Anyway, so going into this movie, there's been a bunch of buzz about this whole Matthew Reeves universe of Batman, and what they're going to be building upon and future movies, but also HBO Max utilizing that kind of like Marvel does with Disney Plus and expanding the universe. So, Peacemaker, this is live. You are that is correct. We are live.
we're
Um,
live.
we are live. Um, Gabe at the House 99. We are live. But the
Yep,
prequel
Batman.
shows are supposed to be like building the lore, giving characters extra time, to build out their space and stuff like that. But one thing was announced, and we talked about it. I believe we talked about it during DC Fandom, is that there's supposed to be a prequel because this movie is based off of Batman Year Two, but then the prequel series was supposed to be based on Batman Year One, and I think it was supposed to be a like following a cop, something like that, and then I can't remember all the details, but that Batman comes and helps out that cop or something like that. And this, again, early years before this whole movie. But Matthew Reeves, I believe he was on a podcast and they were talking about it. And he said that the prequel show was on hold and is most likely that they're not going to do it. So that doesn't look like they're going to have a year one Batman of this universe. And I say that because again, he said on hold. He didn't say officially canceled. So I don't want to put too many words, but all the other outlets are saying that it's canceled based off of what he said on this podcast. But again, he said it's on hold. I don't know if that's officially canceled. But we also have, again, as I said earlier, a possible Arkham series. We could see who's in Arkham right now, which we know Riddler's there, Joker's there. Who else is there? We don't know if anyone else is there, or maybe what's his name? The Saz, the killer, the Sazaz. I don't know. It's the one with he kills a bunch of people. Serial killer. Who knows? Maybe Calendar Man is there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But other characters could be in Arkham, and it's just an opportunity to expand that. It's possible that there could be a Catwoman series. It could be a Penguin series. Don't know exactly what lengths. They're probably weighing all of that now, how successful the movie is, and what story they want to tell for the next movie and what they need to bridge in between. But I do expect there to be HBO Max series on this. Just whether we're not getting a year one, basically.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I mean, I thought I saw that there was like a different like thing that they might do. I don't know, like with spinoff, but I saw that in the passing, and then I couldn't find the article again. I tried searching for it, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, it will be interesting. Like I said, with I think with the Penguin, they were supposed to I think do a spinoff, right? Did you see that?
Yeah, right. Like they're gonna possibly do one with, you know, what happens after this movie and how he builds the crime empire.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And then the finally, like I didn't think much of it after I saw the post credit scene, but I guess there's like a big website that you go to, obviously, and there's like riddles you can answer essentially on the website. I haven't really done that yet. Did you go into that?
I didn't personally go into this website, but from what I understand, like I said, like the post credit scene, like you're supposed to basically feel led to or compelled to go to the ratalada.com because it is actually like it's part of the movie, and it is actually a real life website that you can go to right now, and check out some stuff. So one thing that there's like a code that needs to be ciphered on there. I'm not going to cover that today, but there are some Easter eggs that, like, once you do a little bit of clicking through, there's like a bunch of numbers that pop up. They look like IP addresses, um, and all of these numbers are actually big Easter eggs, just for fun, but possibly is it going to lead to something else. And I'm just going to go over them real quick. So the first one, the 27/05/1939, these are actually dates and numbers. So that is a reference to Detective Comics number 27, which came out in May 19th, 1939. So you can see where we're going with this, with these numbers. That references the first appearance of Batman and Commissioner Gordon. Second one is 1940. That's Batman #1, which is the first appearance of Joker and Catwoman. 1941 is Detective Comics 1958, which was the first appearance of the Penguin. 1948 is Detective Comics 140. This is the first appearance of the Riddler. So you can see where we're going. It's just these are all like the first appearances of all the characters and things that are in the movie. 40503 1987 is Batman number 405. That's the first appearance of Carmine Falcone. 1604 1943 is Batman number 16, the first appearance of Alfred. And the one that's a little bit more important to me here, the last one is 258 10 1974. This is Batman number 258, and that is a comic that has Two-Face breaking out of Arkham Asylum, and that is the first appearance of Arkham Asylum. The last number is the release date of the movie. It's 2022. That's last week. So that's not that big of a deal. That's just a fun Easter egg. But the last one with Two-Face there is kind of interesting because it makes you wonder, is that just a coincidence? Because they want to, the Arkham Asylum is in the movie briefly at the end, and are we just putting it there because that's the first appearance of Arkham Asylum? Or are we noting this because of Two-Face? And is this a possible Easter egg for a future movie? Because, well, if you watch the movie, we realize that the district attorney, that's Coulson in the movie, the guy that was drove the car through the church and had the phone taped to his hand, and he ended up dying in the movie. So there's a vacancy there, a district attorney. And who else would take that role other than Harvey Dent, Two-Face? So I find that interesting. And I've, again, even without all of his Easter egg stuff, if we weren't even talking about this right now, that's something that happened in the movie. Coulson died. They don't have a district attorney. And that is a very obvious thing that's probably going to happen in the next movie, that we're going to see Harvey Dent, whether he becomes Two-Face in the next movie or the third one or what have you, can't really say. But that's just a nice little bunch of Easter eggs to go over.
Yeah, I'll have to go in and really look into it. I just didn't really have time because I know when we were doing the outline for the show, I saw you obviously put that in there, and I just didn't have time to check it out. So I'll definitely do that. I was just kind of looking at something right now. I guess there's like a message that translates as follows: like, you think I'm finished, but perhaps you don't know the full truth. Every ending is a new beginning. Something is coming. So
yeah, that's before you get to the codes there. And I believe there's also a countdown on the website, which I don't know where it is. Like what's remaining on the countdown or what's going to happen after the countdown is over. But I believe there is a countdown also on their website.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But yeah, so we'll start wrapping up here. Any final thoughts that you have about the Batman or anything else that has come up on the top of your head?
I think we're good to go. I like the movie. I didn't love the movie, but I do think it's the best Batman movie overall. Although it's been a while since I've seen, in the very least, the first three movies. We're not going to talk about Batman and Robin because that was clearly not good. But the other three, it's been a while since I've seen them. I don't want to say that they're bad because they're definitely not. But I would lean towards this one being the best one for sure. Me, as not a crazy Batman fan, can say that still, like, level-headed and no bias. This is a really good movie, worth checking out.
Yeah, like I said, I've said from the beginning, I thought this was the best Batman to date. and I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm actually gonna try to go watch it again. I got the next 2 days off, so I'll see. Maybe on Friday I'll go like in a morning show or a brunch time show or whatever time they have the earliest shows to try to see. Because like I said, I missed a couple of parts because I had to like run to the bathroom. It was my error. I shouldn't have drank anything before the movie. I had drank like a glass of water because I was thirsty. But I should just waited instead, and I couldn't like.
Well, it was a really long movie.
Normally I can hold it, but it was odd. It was just like, man, I have never had to go to the bathroom this many times during a movie. What the hell? But it was just kind of like unfortunate. I missed a couple of parts of the movie that I'll have to go back and, like I said, watch. I think the first part I missed. I don't know what I missed on the second part, but the first part I think I missed when the district attorney dies, essentially. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, that's it looks like I didn't know there was an Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer out yet, so that's my bad. No, I have not watched it yet. I'm sorry, King Pookie. We're not big Star Wars people, but I told you one day we will have a Star Wars episode just for you. We'll get to that, I promise. Maybe, like I said, maybe we'll get Joe Mandel on to because he's a big Star Wars guy. So maybe we'll just get him on, and Carl and I will just ask him questions about, like I said, the Mandalorian, and I know they have what do you call it? The Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the Book of Boba Fett is essentially like a 1.2 or whatever of Mandalorian. Like you can't watch the Book of Boba Fett without watching the Mandalorian because you'll be completely lost. Or Mandalorian season 2, I should say. Or you'll be completely lost as far as what's going on with the show as far as the Book of Boba Fett's concerned. But like I said, maybe we'll just have like Joe on and we'll talk about the show in itself, like the Book of Boba Fett, and then Obi-Wan and stuff, get his thoughts on what he thinks about that show. But yep, that's a wrap for today's show. Thank you again for everyone that's tuned in. Please check out any previous episodes that you may have missed in the past. We've talked about so many different movies, comic book movies, and stuff like that. So definitely worth checking out. Give us your thoughts on what you feel so far, anything that you particularly liked or disliked. And yeah, check out all the different other different shows that are on the Barroom Network. So for Carl Eames and myself, thank you very much for tuning in. Till next time.
Have a good night, guys.